Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the one who operas softly in 2025.
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Rock Hard 1977. Now if you're curious about our opinion, check out our other video, Rolling with Reviews, Rock Hard 1977. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. Set in 1977, the players are up-and-coming musicians, dreaming of making it big. Over 9 months, you'll rehearse, play gigs, write songs, and promote your band. With careful planning and a lot of luck, you'll be the one to earn the most fame and become the best new artist of the year. All right, well, so how does the game change for 2 players?
So for 2 players, you have to use the bot, the Rising Star, Nanaman. Basically what it involves is 3 cubes, 1 to go to each of the phases of the day. There's going to be the daytime, the nighttime, and the after hours. Each round you'll have a list of which spots get blocked up by those cubes, and it'll change from round to round. And those will always be in the same order. They're going to be on the 2 and 3 player board.
Side of the board, yeah.
So you're going to have to also choose that side of the board to play. But beyond that, that's the main change for a 2-player, is you have to use it. You can play it with 3 players, but you don't have to. But 2 players, it's a must.
Yep. So issues at the 2-player count is this bot adds a lot of just...
Extra fiddliness.
Yeah, extra fiddliness during the cleanup phase, which is already really, really fiddly.
Yeah, so you're going to have to move the round marker, which isn't too bad. And the round marker will also tell you whether or not you pay your manager, because on the 3rd, 6th, and 9th rounds, or if the game ends, that's when you have to pay your manager. You also have to consult where the bot, or Rising Star, needs to move. You need to change out the 5 tokens that are on the 5 different hangout decks. If you've used the sugar deck, you have to shuffle that. You also have to check to see who's going to be in which order for the next round, and those are going to be based on the numbers, and then reassociate the picks to indicate who's going to go first, second, third, whatever.
And you should do that before rearranging the tokens.
Right, before rearranging the tokens. Because those tokens also tell you the number in which they go. And so keeping that in order. You also have to look to make sure anyone who has a record deal gets paid their income and stars. You also have to check to see if there is any character who has triggered their sugar switch, because if so, they'll need to flip it down and they'll start the next day in rehab and then adjust accordingly. And we haven't even talked about restarting, preparing for the next round, because those...
That's when you change the events and the random gig for the day. The cleanup and start of the next round kind of all blends together, and doing things in the right order. I mean, there's only a few things you have to do in the right order. Is redo turn order before you change those numbers. But otherwise, everything else just you need to do before you start the next round. So adding in the bot and making sure you move the 3 cubes to the next spot correctly, which I didn't do sometimes in our games, it's challenging, not in and by itself. It's the fact that so many other things are needing to be changed as well.
Yeah, because where the little cubes go is pretty clear, because on the board it'll say a number and that'll indicate what month you're on.
Yeah. And there's the reference card, which is very clear because it says the name of the month and then a row where the different named spots are that you would move the cube to.
Right.
It's just referring to it.
Yeah,
so.
It's a lot of stuff. And then I think there might even be managers you need to make sure to tilt back upright.
Oh yeah, if you've used your manager, you can only generally speaking, use your manager once per round. And so if you use it in the previous round, you have to turn it back upright so you can use it again.
Yeah.
And I think that's about everything for that. But there are at least one of the characters. Each character has an ability. And there's at least one character that is not balanced for 2. It's Doc Sapphire, because you get 3 tokens and you can choose another player, and you and that player will bump up one stat by one, whatever you choose. The problem in a two-player game, that means you're just helping both players move forward. And I gotta say, when Will chose to play that character and chose, to raise the stats, it ended up helping me more than I could see it helping him.
Right.
So,
I mean, I could choose which one, and you're
yeah.
like, free stat. I don't care.
Right. It's never a bad thing. So that character specifically should only be played in at least 3-player game. We didn't obviously play all the characters because they included quite a lot, but there might be other ones that might not work as well at 2 players either.
Right.
So that's all the issues. And what it does well, honestly, we couldn't think of anything that it does well at 2-player count.
Right. Specifically at the 2-player count.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to accessibility. As we've discussed, the cleanup and start of round, there's just a whole lot of steps. Will already went through them, so we're not going to go through them again. It's just remembering to do everything.
Yeah, and it's because no one thing is that complex. It's easy to overlook and forget. Like, for example, I forgot, before changing out the tiles for the hangouts, we need to indicate who goes in what order first.
Yeah, the turn order for the next round needs to be determined before you change those little tokens to randomize. And it's part of me is thinking, it's like, man, I wish you didn't have to randomize those. But thematically, it makes sense. And we'll talk about that in our review video, that there are a lot of amazing thematic choices, but it makes for some
very clunky.
Clunky and cumbersome mechanics.
Yes.
So the rules feel comprehensive, but because this is more of an Ameritrash game than a pure Euro strategy game, there's nuances where you just get into a certain situation. They're just not clarified in the rules.
A particular card.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So there is one card that's incorrect. There's a couple of abilities that have been reworded and some concepts clarified on a Board Game Geek thread. It's called a Narada thread. And it's long, and a lot of it is just clarification, but honestly, it's needed clarification. There's a lot of confusion around the candy mechanism and a few other things. Hopefully in the next printing of this game, if it gets to a second printing, they'll fix the card and clarify those abilities and things. But for now, you're going to have to refer to that if you want to play it correctly.
Yeah. Plus, there were still a few situations where the clarification didn't help me because, again, it was a niche situation that the designer didn't see and so, therefore, never addressed.
And so we just made a choice because that's what you have to do.
Because by that time, I just wanted to move forward with it.
Right. So this next part is, some people are going to hate it. Some people aren't really going to care, but there is paper money. Now, compared to other games, it's actually pretty good paper money. It feels really good, and it is very thematic.
Yeah, the printing has a nice texture to it, so it actually feels like real money. Mm-hmm. And given the setting, I hate to say this, but it kind of made me feel a little sleazy, which was the right note for thematics.
Right.
Because most of the time when I'm spending money, I'm buying candy, which is, drugs. It's your whatever of choice. I mean, in the rules, they talk about it being coffee or any type of thing that you could get addicted to. Yeah.
And the other fun thing about the money is it has drawings all over it. Like people have scribbled on it or stamped it or little doodles. So again, some very thematic reinforcement of the theme. There are real guitar picks, which again, highly thematic, but they are super thin because real guitar picks are super thin. You use these for your turn order.
That can be. I have found guitar picks that are more beveled.
Yeah.
And that would have been a better choice for them.
Right.
And I've seen some that are actually smaller, which also would have been a better choice. So you may have to replace your guitar picks with something you like better. Yeah,
what I was trying to say is they're hard to pick up. They've also crammed them together. So if you're playing a large, like actually playing, I think this goes up to 5 players.
Yes.
They alternate the direction of the guitar picks, but then they're all real crunched together, so they're thin. And anyways, I ended up knocking them around, and that's just in a 2-player game. Anyway, so they're not the best for, because you actually change turn order every single round, and you're playing 9 rounds. It gets frustrating after a while. So you might just want to replace it with something else, either something easier to pick up or better guitar picks.
Yeah. I also thought it was sad because they don't utilize the board space
Yeah, there's
to what it could be functionally.
right. So that's actually my next point is there's a lot of parts of the main board that just really focuses on the art, again, to reinforce the theme. But then that means your usability areas are small and sometimes a little too small if you're sitting farther away or just because the board is big. Even sitting next to each other, I can't see stuff at the top of the board as easily because it's farther away.
But they could have given more room for the picks.
They could have given more room for the picks. They could have given more room for a variety of other areas where it felt really cramped for where you actually put components versus these large open areas that are just art. The player pieces, these are just colored pieces. There's no unique shapes here. There's red, orange, yellow, which could be a problem for some people. The good news is there is white and blue, so those can be different at the very
Blue
least.
or black?
It was blue.
Okay.
It was a light blue.
Okay.
So it should be a different enough shade from everything else. So hopefully if you do have colorblind issues, you can pick white or blue or even yellow should be good for most of these. I haven't heard of anybody really having yellow and orange.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you just look, and fortunately there is enough options there that you can probably find something.
Right. So that's everything we found issues with. What it does well is the player boards are amps, which is a really, again, cool thematic thing. The knobs that you use to track your stats, they're a little difficult at first to move, but then you get the hang of it. And the nice thing then is they stay in place.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about those slipping
Or bumping
or bumping them.
What was I again? At those?
Right.
How many songs did I have? No,
Yeah.
It's pretty locked in place.
And then for the player, the character abilities that have an ability that you need to track, there are specific pieces for that. So that's really good.
So you don't have to just remember that.
Yeah.
Well, I have this ability. Did I ever use it? Well, where's your token?
Yeah.
And so there it's spent. Okay, then you've
Yeah.
done it.
And the acrylic standees for the characters are all unique. So that's really great for the being out on the board and being worker placement. You won't get your character mixed up with anybody else's character. So that part's good. The text in general across the whole game has really good contrast. You're just going to find some issues on the board where it's small. For example, that 2-player number is very small. And then
Where the rising star goes.
right, yeah. So that can be a little bit of a challenge in some of the other areas. But lastly, it is all open information. They say you should keep some of your personal goals secret if you get the type of personal goal that is kept secret. Because there are ones where you flip it over because then you need to track it and because you're going to put cubes on it. So that's face up the whole game.
Yeah.
But the ones that when you achieve this or at the end of the game, you're supposed to keep them secret.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
It just seems weird since they were very inconsistent with how goals are treated. So
Yeah.
It didn't matter.
I didn't see any reason to either. All right, conclusion.
For 2 players.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to say no. This is not going to be great for most 2 players.
Yeah, the experience where it would shine would come out from some player interaction, and you just don't have enough of that in a 2-player game.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's just a list of actions you won't be able to take each round. It's just not very dynamic.
well, I was talking about for some of the player characters.
Oh, yes.
I mean-
certain player characters will just shine better at higher player counts.
Right. And then maybe some of the actions or things, there was the occasional you get something, everyone else gets something.
Right.
You just don't see a lot of that in a 2-player game either.
That is very true.
So, yeah, 2 players, it's an okay experience, but I'd say it's flat and not really a great 2-player game.
Agreed.
Accessibility.
It's fine. I think most people will be okay. It's just the rules, I think, are probably the comprehension of it is probably be the most challenging part for accessibility.
Right. Yeah. Fortunately, with everything mostly being open information, save the goals, and even the goals don't really matter
To keep secret. Yeah.
I think the bigger accessibility issue will be trying to grasp rules when they aren't covered.
Right.
And you're like, okay, is this covered in the errata and covering through all that and the frequently asked questions? Okay, I finally found it. That would probably be the bigger accessibility issue.
Agreed.
All right, and that'll do it for us, Sarah.
Yes.
Does this game to go to 11?
You're going to have to watch our review video to find out that.
And why would you ever roll with just one when you can be
rolling with two?
If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.